ESBR Boxing. We're about myself and Paul Kelly. That means only one thing. That means we are here in preview mode, previewing, I suppose, one of the undercard fights for the Titanic clash that's taking place in the Kingdom of Riddia, upcoming, the Usyk versus Fury. Heavyweight super fight. We're on the undercard here. But before we get into the fight we're previewing, I just want to say please like and subscribe to the channel. We've got all your boxing needs under one roof. Big fight breakdowns, previews, reviews, all that good stuff, interviews with fighters, footage from the events, etc., etc. So please do check that out, like and subscribe and engage with that content. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. As I said, we are in preview mode. And do you know what we're previewing? We're previewing a featherweight clash between two guys. It's actually well known to us. Isaac Lowe, a man championed by boxing media and by boxing alike, and Lee McGregor, who's obviously had a bit of, I suppose, a stop-start career, you could say, really. But obviously, at one point was a really sort of promising prospect. Had that obviously that close fight with Cash Farouk as well. But yeah, looking to obviously rebuild his career. Isaac Lowe possibly might be coming to the end of his career, but also looking to sort of stay at that level. So we're going to be previewing that one, Paul. Before we get into it, though, we don't like to do too much, do we, around the ways of the fighters' records and all that sort of stuff. What I want to actually ask you is a question about Lee McGregor, and it's about the sort of featherweight scene. And that is, do you, in your mind, do you think that Lee McGregor could possibly win a world title at featherweight with the way things currently stand? Obviously, Espinoza, Angelo Leo, Figueroa, your man Figueroa, Nick Bald, another one of your men. You got a lot of men down in that division as well. But do you think that Lee McGregor could make an imprint on that division, maybe win a world title there at some point?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, mate. Looking forward to this one. I think this is a good fight, but as you say, before we get on to it, an interesting one for me, that question, mate. I think, we're used to seeing Lee McGregor at bantamweight at the start, winning a British and European, and then obviously stepping up to super bantam. He won he fought was it Robles Ayala, I think, for the IBO
That's right. Yeah.
title. So whatever credence you give that belt and whether or not it is a world title, he was at kind of that level at super bantam. Now this is obviously up at featherweight, so he's kind of stepping up a couple of weights, which is fair enough because it must be difficult to make those lighter weights. I know you and I certainly wouldn't be making those weights anyway, but yes, I think that in short, no. Could he win a world title at featherweight? No. When I look at that featherweight landscape, that landscape at 126 pounds, it is absolutely stacked at the top end. Like you look, as you mentioned, the champions. At the minute, you've got Espinoza, and Rabisi Ramirez. They were kind of having their rematch. Then you've got Nick Ball. You've got Brandon Figueroa doesn't even technically hold a belt, and he's up there fighting Stephen Fulton, of course, in the new year. Another cracking fight. Luis Alberto Lopez isn't the champion any longer, having been stopped by Angelo Leo. But like you'd probably think that Luis Alberto Lopez would beat Lee McGregor. When you kind of match it up and think, right, realistically, if he did get a world title shot, who would it be against Lee McGregor? You're I'm 99% sure majority of people are backing Lee, the man in the opposite corner, and that's no disrespect to Lee McGregor. It's just simply how strong, in my opinion, the featherweight division is right now.
Mm. No, I think I agree with you. I think yeah, I mean, you look at that division, you look at some of those names that you said, even Vargas, Leo, Espinosa, like Luis Alberto Lopez, man, we previewed many times on this show. Would I back Lee McGregor to go in there and stop him and beat him? Not stop him, definitely, but no, I don't think so. No, so I think, unfortunately, like you say, it's a stacked division. Ford down there, all those Rob Ramirez, all those guys. I just think Lee McGregor, like you say, is kind of IBO, maybe a level below those guys. Sort of between, I suppose, sort of European and world, I'd say, to be perfectly honest with you. So no, I don't see him winning a title. But let's talk about, I suppose, what's going to happen for the loser here. I mean, McGregor's still young. He's only 27 years of age and not too many miles on the clock, to be honest. Only 16 pro fights. You look at someone like Isaac Lowe, many, many more sort of revolutions of the wheel for him, 25, 2 and 3. But again, there's only really in those two losses, has actually lost, to Nick Ball and Alberto Lopez. So what you're saying is champions really of that division.
Yeah.
So for this one, I mean, 30 years old, I said a bit older, but do you think for the loser here of this fight, do you think there's a possible rebuild or do you think there's a possible retirement? I mean, where would you like to see the loser of this one go? I mean, retirement might be a strong word, and I know you're not Owen McKendry, but I think where really can you see the rebuild for the loser of this one, Paul, if they were to lose?
Yeah, mate, it's an interesting one now because, as you mentioned, I think sometimes the word retirement gets thrown about a little too much, but it's one of them where you're not saying that they should retire. It's maybe just their career at a certain level is done.
Mm.
They're retiring from the world stage, for example. But they could maybe still do damage, obviously at British, European level, whatever. It's funny that you mentioned Isaac Lowe there. Like I think a lot of people just remember him for that, particularly now. Obviously, he's good friends with Tyson Fury, close with him and stuff in his camp. But a lot of people just remember him for that Nick Ball fight when Nick Ball was a relative unknown. Of course, the ESBR who'd been with him from the small hole days. And if you remember correctly, I think Nick Ball was like 6-1 to win that fight by a knockout, something ridiculous. I know a lot of people won money, especially in Liverpool, on that one. Uh, yeah, Nick Ball destroyed him, and I think that fight sticks in a lot of people's memories. That's the last like real fight I suppose he's had. I know he's fought 4 times since the Nick Ball defeat, but that's like his last real fight, and he got, for want of a better phrase, he kind of got absolutely annihilated by Nick Ball on that occasion. But as you mentioned, he's only 30 years old. But then we recently have just seen Sonny Edwards, only 28 years old, all but announce his retirement in the ring after losing successive fights to um, pound for pound star Jesse Bam Rodriguez, and then of course Galal Yafai as well. So it's one of them where yeah, you might find that the loser is like, do you know what? I can't really. Could we? Do I want to take another beating up at this level? No. Do I want to drop down? Maybe their pride might not let them drop down that level as well. Do you know what I mean? So retirement could be an option, but I definitely think there's a rebuild there, particularly for Lee McGregor. As you said, he's only young. He's really only starting out his featherweight journey now. It'd be interesting to see how he gets on against a fully fledged featherweight in Isaac Lowe, whether or not that power translates. Because obviously, as you mentioned, 14 victories he has, Lee McGregor, 11 via stoppage, which is quite a lot for down in those lower weight categories. So yeah, definitely, I'm not going to throw the word retirement at either man here, but a big rebuild would be needed for the loser for sure.
Yeah, I also agree with you. I don't think there's retirement for the loser, but I do think that for maybe someone like Lee McGregor, you could probably get, one of those sort of 10-round Jazza Dickens MTK events in Dubai. He could feature on those quite heavily as well. I think for me, Isaac Lowe will always get a fight, get a gig as long as sort of Fury's going as well. I think, he'll always be on those undercards. I also feel like he seems to love it. He seems to love boxing. I don't see any chance he could retire. But I also think he's almost got a bit of a bigger profile than Lee McGregor, to be honest. I can still see him as that sort of stepping stone fight. Like Stallone Nick Ball came in absolutely annihilated him and was like, oh, crikey, let's sort of step up and take notice. So I think, yeah, he'll continue as well, but may drop to that stepping stone level. But Paul, before we go, obviously, we have to wrap this video up. We've only got 8 rounds in us ourselves here. We're in a late rounder, but we're going to say prediction time, Paul. Obviously, a close fight. You mentioned there Lee McGregor, KOs, 11 KOs. We also mentioned Isaac Lowe earlier. We mentioned, only lost really 2 of the best in that division. Has been stopped twice, though. Do you think who wins this one, Paul? And if it's Lee McGregor, does he stop him?
You have to be very good to beat Isaac Lowe, which is really crazy to say because when you look at those two men that have beaten him, they are the top level of the division. Is Lee McGregor that top level? I'm not so sure. However, I do think he has enough to get past Isaac Lowe. I think Lee McGregor wins this. I'm kind of humming and hawing with the stoppage. I'm actually leaning towards points, to be perfectly honest with you. I think Isaac Lowe could see the final bell. I think it could be competitive enough. I think Isaac Lowe will win rounds as well. But ultimately, I see Lee McGregor just getting enough done and to win via decision. Whether that's unanimous or not, don't know. But I think he'll win on the judges' scorecards, mate. What about yourself?
You know what? I inhaled there. It was like a bit of a sharp body shot because I actually was going to go Lee McGregor points as well, and we've not conferred this before this video has been recorded. But I think as well, I think he's got enough to beat Isaac Lowe, but I don't think he's necessarily got enough to stop Isaac Lowe. I think Isaac Lowe's got enough in him to get to the final bell. Hasn't really got the power to hurt Lee McGregor either, but I still think he's got enough guile to sort of fight to the end. So I'm also with you, Paul McGregor points. But guys, let us know what you think on this one in the comments, whether you think it'd be McGregor or Lowe. Also, how you sort of see McGregor's chances in the sort of featherweight division, and also what you think for the loser. Like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, engage with the content as we said at the top of the video. But Paul, as always, thank you very much for joining me, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you